Good morning, everyone. It is now 10:11, March 30th, 2023. And this morning, we will be examining the nomination for Ms. Teresita Santos, nominated to be Secretary, Department of Public Lands. And this afternoon, we will hear and vet the credentials of Mr. Rufo Mofnes, nominated to be a board member of the Commonwealth Utilities Corporation. And before we proceed with the adoption of the agenda, I'd like to take care of some administrative matters. First, we ask that everyone please silence their electronic devices. The committee appreciates minimal distractions during sessions. Next, I'd like to introduce the Legislative Bureau professionals that are assisting the committee today. For those who may not know them, we have Mr. Joe Bermudez, our legal counsel assigned to the EAGI committee. Sitting in for the legislative assistant assigned to the EAGI committee is Ms. Jolene Tagawell. We have our IT manager, Mr. Jonathan Diaz. And to keep order and decorum at all times in the chamber, we have our Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Benter Lahi, that will be assisting us this morning. Next, we will move on to the adoption of the agenda, and I'd like to recognize Senator. I would like to recognize Ms. Jolene Tagabal to call the roll for the committee.
Senator Selena R. Babauta,
Present.
Senator Paul A. Manglona, Senator Donald M. Manglona,
Present.
Senator Dennis C. Mandiola.
Here.
Madam Chair, all four members of the Senate EAJ committee are present.
Thank you. With all four members present in today's meeting, quorum has been established to conduct today's meeting. Next, we have the adoption of the agenda, and I would like to recognize Senator Paul Manglona for the proper motion.
Madam Chair, I move for the adoption of our agenda today as listed in the posting. So move.
Motion has been made and it has been seconded. Are there any concerns or questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Today's agenda is duly adopted. At this time, I would like to invite Mr. Oscar Babauta, the Special Assistant for Administration, and the nominee to please join us at the table. And the role of Mr. Babauta here is to introduce the nominee to the committee. You may proceed when you're ready, Mr. Babauta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, I bring greetings from the administration of Governor Honorary Palacios and that of Lieutenant Governor David Mundo Apete to you, Madam Chair, and distinguished members of this August body, EAJ committee. Good morning, Hafaday Jantiro, Talumbiay, Chairwoman Babauta, and members of this committee. For the record, my name is Oscar M. Babauta, the Special Assistant for the Administration of the Office of the Governor. On behalf of Governor Arnold Palacios and Lieutenant Governor David M. Apateng, I thank you again one more time for the opportunity to appear before you today. I am here this morning to introduce the Governor's nominee for the Secretary of the Department of Public Lands, none other than former Representative and former Senator, Ms. Teresita Terry, fondly known as Terry A. Santos, from the beautiful island of Rota. Ms. Santos has over 40 years of experience, both in the public sector and no stranger, also to some of the private sector, and to the extent to the Department of Public Lands, as she served as Director of the DPL Rota office from 2004 to 2009. Her career started as a classroom teacher in the Sinamay Public School systems from 1982 to 1994. At the same time, she was the disaster control representative for the island of Rota at the known office before, as it transformed currently now known as Emergency Management Office from 1983 to 1984. She then worked as the Deputy Clerk of Court for Saipan and Rhoda from 1984 to 1987. From 1992 to 1995, she joined the Northern Marianas College as an adjunct faculty in Rhoda, while at the same time serving as the Chief of Staff for the 5th Rota Municipal Council from 1994 to 1995. Shortly after, she became the resident director of Rota Health Center in 1998 to 2002. She was then elected. And she was then elected to the Sinamay 17 and 18 Sinamay legislature in the House of Representatives and as vice chair of the Rota Legislative Delegation and chairwoman of the 18 Rota Legislative Delegation. She also served as a member of numerous House Standing Committee and special committees. Afterwards, she was elected to serve in the 1920 and 22nd legislature in the Senate, serving as a member of the multiple Senate Standing Committees and chairing the Senate Standing Committee on Health, Welfare, and Public Utility and Communications. Ms. Santos has a BA degree in political science with a minor in history from the University of Guam in 1983. She was in the School of Dentistry from Central Escolar University of Dentistry and took part in 1994 pre-law summer program sanctioned by the University of New Mexico from the Northern Marianas College here in Saipan. Governor Palacios and Lieutenant Governor Apatang have placed their full confidence and trust in Ms. Santos to serve as the next Secretary, Department of Public Lands. I know she stands ready to answer your inquiry and other concerns and presents her plan for Department of Public Lands in the near future. Her long history of professional experience, credentials, and commitment to serving the Commonwealth in this capacity makes her a viable candidate, and we kindly ask for the expeditious deliberation and hopefully a fervent hope from the administration with your approval to the full Senate. Madam Chair, once again, we extend our gratitude, Dan Galisto, to each and every one of you for conducting this public hearing this morning for the administration's nominees. And like the late General MacArthur says, I shall return this afternoon. Thank you. Buenos dias to all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Babalta. Today, we will consider the nominee credentials, both educational, professional standing of Ms. Teresita Santos, which involves the legislature exercising its statutory authority to do so, a process unique to the Senate. And that is why we are here today. At this time, I would like to open the floor for public comments. The floor is now open.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of this body. My name is Connie Togawa. I have known Ms. Teresita Santos since 2003 when I was working for Marianas Public Lands Authority, MPLA, in Saipan, while she was a Rota resident director under MPLA and also as a former senator. Her extensive experience in land matters and legislative knowledge makes her a perfect candidate whose qualification aligns with the mandate of Public Law 15-2, the Public Land Act of 2006, responsible for the administrations, use, leasing, development, and disposition of all those lands defined as public lands by Northern Mariana Islands Constitution, Article 11, or any other provision of law. The Department of Public Lands have not had a secretary who possessed the knowledge and experience in the CNMI land tenure systems and matters necessary and beneficial for the management of Department of Public Lands as the premier provider of public lands development and solution serving the Northern Marianas Descent public and private sectors. Ms. Santos' professionalism, proficiencies, and demonstrate leadership is a valuable asset to management of public lands, and the need to administer these valuable resources in compliance with the requirements and the fiduciary duties imposed by the Constitution for the benefit of NMD. Sizuos Maasi. Thank you.
Mrs. Mossett, Senora Tagawa, thank you. May I ask that you turn over your written comments to the Sergeant at Arms? And for those who wish to make public comments, I ask that you state your name and the entity you represent.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of this committee. My name is Ana Demapon Castro, former chairwoman of the Marianas Public Lands Authority, now Department of Public Lands, from 2004 to 2006. I am here in support of Ms. Teresita Santos' nomination for Secretary of the Department of Public Lands. During my tenure, Ms. Santos worked for MPLA as Director, District Office for the island of Rota, and demonstrated high level of administrative competence, planning and implementation, and multitask collaboration. Beyond that, she has also served as House of Representative and Senate. Madam Chair and members of this committee, giving her years of experience and skills in public service in the CNMI, I am confident that Ms. Santos will make an exceptional Secretary of the Department of Public Lands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Demapon Castro. The floor is still open.
Blue red. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of this committee. My name is Patricia Rosa. I'm currently working at the Department of Public Lands as Planning Division Director. Before proceeding, I would like the committee to know that my support for Ms. Santos to be Secretary of Public Lands is unsolicited. On an equal vein, I'm not here for self-serving matter interest. Madam Chair, my testimony here is purely a manifestation of an objective and subjective analysis of the nominee's fitness and ability to be the Secretary of the Department of Public Lands. I have every confidence that this committee will, in the final analysis, peruse a methodology that is fair and impartial. Madam Chair and members of the committee, I strongly believe that the most objective, impartial standard of review should be based on education, experience, and training. The nominee's formal education is beyond reproach. I believe your committee has been provided with her resume. In experiences, I have integrated a combination of professional work experiences that makes her qualified by eminence. On training, she need not be trained. Ms. Santos was the resident director for Rhoda for the then MPLA for 4 years. She's no stranger to this line of work and responsibility. Under the mentioned criteria, the nominee excels superlatively. Proven education, proven experience, and proven training. The subjective portion involves certain nominal terms more readily described as leadership and management skills. As we all know, leadership and management are two distinct words with different meanings because leadership does not have subordinates, but management does. Madam Chair and members, given the nominee's short time with us at the Department of Public Lands, she has demonstrated, without placing a litany of descriptive adjectives, a wealth of knowledge, possesses the ability to lead, a believer in consensus building, and the ability to challenge conventional wisdom whenever she deems it necessary. I strongly urge the committee to recommend her confirmation. If anything, her confirmation shall be deemed as an appropriate allocation of our intellectual resources. I thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Sidus Masi.
Sis Mase, Ms. Rosa, the floor is still open.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of this committee. My name is Dr. Dallas Peavy. I'm the Acting Executive Director for CUC. In my short time of being here and in this position for the last 4 to 6 weeks, I've had several opportunities to meet with Ms. Santos, working with her team and under her leadership, and working with the governor and this administration to try to find ways to lower the cost of service for CUC. Working with Ms. Santos specifically on projects, lands for projects that would do those very things. I have found her to be very professional, very prepared, her staff very motivated to do the right things. So in my short time and in the short words that I have for this committee and for you, Madam Chair, is that I would hope that this nomination would go through without any shortcomings or any slow process. These are the type of leaders I believe that you need here. Working with her as I have over the last 4 to 6 weeks, she's a perfect fit. And so thank you for having the time to let me say these words, and I offer my offer of support, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Peavy. The floor is still open.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of this committee. My name is James Santos, Terry's sibling. I know that you have in your possession Terry's credentials, resume. But I'm not here to expound on her past and previous work experiences and educational attainment. I'm here to testify to you and those that are in this room and those watching online about one aspect of Terry that nobody knows, that no one is more qualified than I am as a sibling. And it is her character. And it is the character that makes us all here. It is who you are when nobody's listening. It is the decision that you make. Even though what's popular, but the decisions that Terry was making when she was a legislator were not always popular, but were always right. And when she made those decisions, it was her conviction, it was her character, her integrity, her morality that made her make those decisions. She's consulted me on several times on decisions in the past. I've gave her my 2 cents of opinion, but at the end of the day, it was her that made the right choice. And sometimes I have to stay back and say, she was right. You know, when we go through those times when we had to make choices. The people of the Commonwealth are witnesses to the decisions that she made when she was in the legislature. Those decisions were conflicting and controversial, but Terry stood her grounds and she made those two decisions that to her was right. And during those times, it is those times that are separating the men and the boys. It is those times that are separating the women and the girls. And this is the character, this is the ability that Terry is going to bring into public lands. And it is shaped by the years that she's been through, her experiences, not only as in her personal career, but in her personal situation in her life. And I do hope that as you deliberate on her nomination, that you take into consideration Teresita A. Santos' character and the decisions that he made in the past. That to my opinion, and to her opinion especially, is that the people of the Commonwealth comes first. I thank you for this opportunity, and I hope that you give her the opportunity to serve in this capacity. I thank all those individuals that have come out and testified on her behalf, to Governor Palacios and Lieutenant Governor Apatang for nominating her in this position. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of this committee.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. The floor is still open.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of this committee. I'm here to testify in favor of the nomination of former Senator Santos for the Secretary of Department of Public Land.
May I ask you to please state your name for the record?
My name is Matthew Cruz Mosga, and I'm the Senior Policy Advisor for Tinian Mayor's Office. I need not to rephrase the history of or the background of the nominee today. I know the nominee because I've had many times working with her with regard to departmental budget matters. This is in regards to DFEMS as a former director of fire department in Tinian and a former director of DPS. I had the opportunity to work with Senator Santos, the Senate. It is the openness and the willingness to work and enhance the department. That's the value that I'm here to testify, that the DPO is really have the opportunity to enhance the department because of her experience. Again, I would like to thank the governor, Governor Palacios and Lieutenant Governor Apatang for nominating for secretary position former Senator Santos. Again, I'm here and I'm asking you to please confirm her um, and really look into her representing the DPL with her capacity. As you know, there's a lot of issues with DPL with homestead programs throughout the Commonwealth, most especially Tinian. I believe that the senator former senator that is nominated can really sit down and work with the Tinian leadership. She knows the Tinian leadership. She knows, the issues in front of us. She knows the economy that we're not doing good, and DPL is part of the recovery that handles our land leases. So again, I urge this committee, Madam Chairman and members, with all due respect, please give her the vote of confidence and confirm her for this position. Again, thank you for the opportunity this morning, and Sizus Masi.
Jesus Mosque, Mr. Mosca. The floor is still open.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of this committee. My name is Rebecca Palacios Cruz. I'm here on behalf this morning for asking for your vote of confidence to please consider Ms. Terry Santos' nomination to lead the Department of Public Lands. Her vast experience of knowledge, education, and a determination to lead the department, I will say and strongly say that she can lead the department without any questions. I believe with all her confidence, the confidence that we have in her as a member of the committee, supporting her nomination, I will strongly please look into her again, background and vast majority of her the experience she has. And I strongly support that she can do the job. Please give her that opportunity by nominating her and giving her this position. And just on behalf of me and my family, and of course, the administration of Arne Palacios and David Apitang. Jesus Maasi, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. The floor is still open.
Madam Chairman, the senators. My name is Paul Zach, and I'm here just as the public. I go to a lot of meetings just to hear what's going on because I don't sometimes trust what's in the paper. Sometimes it's edited. So I'm here to say that, and to repeat, Jack Welch, chairman of the board of General Electric, was asked one day, "What do you do?" You're the chairman of the board of General Electric, the largest corporation in the United States with diversity. What do you do? So Jack said, my job is to find the right people, agree to a policy or a goal, fund it, and get out of the way. You got to find people who have the strength to carry out the mission, right? One of the things that I've heard sitting back there, the diversity of what the nominee has. And one of the things that struck me, okay, is that her education background for the number of years. I was told that if you cannot explain to an 8-year-old what the program is, it's too complicated. You got to be able to have somebody who works with limited talent, all right? You have to be strong in some places to show that you're the boss, okay? You also have to be flexible to be able to hear what people are saying, all right? I've known Teresa since she was a senator, okay? Her door was always opened. She at least listened, okay? She tried to help, okay? I think she's a people person, which is important in this job, all right? Because you're dealing with investors coming here to help with the economy. There's complexity of laws because there are twists and turns that nobody ever even thought about, all right? So you need somebody who's politically savvy, who kind of understands how to put together the different areas here in the government, from the legislature to all the people that work in her department in the various subsections, to get them motivated to go to a goal, okay? One of the things that your job will be to help her create those goals. Where do we want to be? How do we want to get there? When do we want to be there? All right. These are the important things. So looking at an outsider, I've been here since August of 1991. I've been through many governors. I was counting it before. I've been through 7 governors. I've been through lots of presidents of the Senate. I've been through many of the House members, right? I've lived on this island. I'm not a tourist. I don't come and go. I don't live someplace else. I have an American citizenship, and this has been my residence for 30 years. All right. Uh, so what I look as a member of the public, you've got somebody who is capable. All right. Now it's up to you to decide what parameters she's going to operate under, what important things that you're going to say. These are on our agenda, and then let her do her job. Let her get carried on with what she needs to do. So I'm in support because, again, what Jack Welsh is, find the right person. That's what your job is. All right. Give them what the mandate is of what they need to do. All right. And get out of the way. Let her do it. All right. If she fails, she fails. But if she's got the right qualities, if she's gone through the process at different levels of this government, give her a shot. I'm in support of her because from my experience, she listens, she tries to incorporate, and I think she can do the job. So with that, I thank you for my unprepared statements, listening as the audience. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zach. The floor is still open. If there are none, we will move on. I also want to state for the record that we received written testimony in support of the nominee from Dr. Dallas MPV Jr., Ms. Janice A. Tenorio, Chairwoman of CUC Board, Ms. Johanna Ada from Orlando, Florida, Mr. Albert A. Taitano from Rhoda, Mr. Claudio K. Norita, Mr. Stephen K. Meskin, Mr. Ray Yumo, retired Sergeant Major Herman M. Atalik, Ms. Bernadita S. Saniklas, Director of the Tinian Office for DPL, Mr. Christopher A. Concepcion, Mr. Jesus V. De Leon Guerrero, otherwise known as JM Guerrero, Ms. D. Tanya King, Principal of Dr. Rita Hokok Enos Junior and Senior High School. Aside from the oral testimony we have heard this morning. And now we will proceed. Ms. Santos, may I please ask you to stand while the legislative assistant administers the oath.
Ms. Teresita A. Santos, you do solemnly swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you and good morning, Ms. Santos. At this time, I will recognize you if you would like to make any opening remarks to the committee.
Yes, I do, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you for that opportunity. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman Babauta and members of this august body. First, I would like to thank our governor, our honorable, the Honorable Arno I. Palacios, and our Lieutenant Governor, the Honorable David M. Apatang, for their trust and confidence in my ability to lead the Department of Public Lands. I would also like to extend gratitude to our SAA, Mr. Oscar Babauta, who introduced me to this body this morning, and everyone who testified in oral or in writing in support or not in support of my nomination. There is no doubt that next to our people, the single most important resource of the Northern Mariana Islands is our land. The total land area for the Northern Mariana Islands is a mere 184 square miles. Saipan has 47 square miles, Rhoda at 33 square miles, and Tinian has 39 square miles. This is also to include the Northern Mariana Islands, the most northern islands. Our land sustains every aspect of our lives, our way of life and our culture, providing fundamental life support systems and the foundation of our economy and society. As trustees of public lands in our Commonwealth, the Department of Public Lands' mission is to incorporate our strategic land use plan into effective management, use, disposition, and development of public lands to promote cultural and economic growth for the benefit of our present and future generations of our Commonwealth. Public Law 15-2 created the Department of Public Lands under the Office of the Governor to manage and administer the Commonwealth public lands under the provisions of Article 11 of the Constitution, our Constitution. Under this law, the department continues to play an active role in the caretaking, management, and disposition of public lands in the Commonwealth. Our Department of Public Lands has 7 divisions and 2 district offices located on the islands of Rhoda and Tinian. Each of these divisions has its goals and objectives and required to submit monthly reports which outlines its achievements, challenges, and recommendations. Upon my advent to the department and having received a copy of the transition team report, some of these divisions were affected by the report, and DPL has been working closely with the division directors to address the identified issues and resolve the same by taking the necessary actions. Of significant importance is to be compliant with Public Law 15-2, Section 103C, and that is to establish the Department of Public Lands Operational Fund to be maintained by the Department of Finance, and again, as recommended by the transition report. In addition, the Department of Public Lands is also working on improving or amending its SOPs, regulations, policies to ensure consistency and a quicker turnaround time with our clientele. DPL has also been commenting on legislations and or initiatives pertaining to public land matters. DPL has an open door policy and open line of communication and greatly appreciates our general public contacting our department for whatever issues, concerns that they may have regarding public lands. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of this august body. I'm ready to address any questions to the best of my ability and sincerity. And with that said, may we have the first question, sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Santos, and welcome to your chamber. At this time, we will move on to new business unless any of the members would like to make any statements. If none, we will open the floor for question and answer at this time. Recognize Senator Donald Manglonia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to everyone present here today. Good morning, former Senator Santos. Congratulations on your nomination. I just have a few questions. I know that other members have different areas they want to cover. I just want to start off with how many employees do you currently manage?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. And so DPO currently has 57 employees. 53 are civil service employees and 4 are ungraded. Prior to March 16, the DPO had also close to about 30, over 30 some ARPA employees. But then again, those employees are no longer with Department of Public Lands effective March 16.
I guess I'm trying to understand, because you were approved for 80, or the department was approved for 83 FTEs. Where is that 30?
Okay, and that is correct.
FTEs?
And so for your information, Senator, the Department of Public Lands is currently, as has been advertising several vacancies, and some of those vacancies have already been closed, and the eligibility has been forwarded to the department for interviews. Well, some of those vacancies or requests for personnel actions are still being routed.
And how many positions are you
And
trying to
that's
fill?
about close to 25, 27, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Why was there a need for 30 ARPA employees when there were about 30 open vacant FTEs? Do you know?
Can you rephrase that question?
Why
again?
was there a need for 30 ARPA temporary employees as opposed to trying to fill those
Okay, so
roughly
those-
30
Yes.
FTEs?
So the ARPA employees does not necessarily are assigned to DPO for the purposes of occupying those vacancies, but those are employees that have been sent by the former administration to the department.
And what were their
So
tasks?
they're being assigned to different divisions. For instance, some of are assigned to the compliance division, some to the division of planning, some to the administration, some to I believe admin, and again they're just
They were spread around, you're
yes,
right.
yes,
But
yes.
so
But generally, yes.
losing those 30, does that, put a burden on the department now that they're no longer there?
For now, it is we're short staff. With surveyors, we're short staff for staff. What's this providing the necessary maintenance over at Camp Pacific, or also known as Marianas Resort. Also, we're short staff at the what's this for the Manyakoha, maintenance and so forth and so forth.
So you're still currently putting staff in those, like Can Pacific?
Yes, we are. For now, after the Department of Public Lands executed a memorandum of agreement with the Department of DLNR, the Department of DLNR has been providing, what's this maintenance services with the department to the Marianas Resort.
Okay.
And by that memorandum of agreement, Department of Public Lands has provided $266,000 for that purpose.
Okay. Now, in understanding that, and with the recent termination of the lease with the Rota Resort, are you also going to provide that same service to the property there at the?
So
Resort.
the after the termination of the Rhoda Resort, it has not been reverted back to our inventory again. There's still some legal process that needs to be undertaken, and at any rate, should we cross that bridge, yes, the Department of Public Lands will be providing the necessary security, including the maintenance. Yes, the maintenance upkeep of the Rhoda Resort.
All right. Thank you. One thing I want to bring up that was reported on the citizen-centric report is the 80 million that was secured for the water and sewer to address the infrastructure concerns in these village homesteads. I just want to get the updates on that project, those
Yes.
projects.
Yes, thank you for that question, Senator DPO. Greatly appreciates that. So, after coming into DPO, I guess a week or two, it was brought to my attention that there was supposedly 88 million of ARPA funds that was available to CUC, and CUC in return will take that funding in order to provide the necessary infrastructure within the Asgono subdivision for water, sewer, water, and power. Unfortunately, after our meeting, subsequent meeting with CUC, it was discovered through the infrastructure recovery program, and Mr. Indalecio is here, who has indicated to us, to DPO, when we had our Zoom meeting, that $88 million cannot be utilized for any new developments, but it could be for an existing development. And that also has been conveyed over to the Department of Public Lands.
Do you know if this?
The same information also was provided to Public Lands from CUC.
So you're saying that this 80 million do you know if this was from the Section D of that ARPA spending plan?
Yeah, I'm not too sure if it is specifically derived from that source, but all I was informed that that particular source of funding derived from ARPA.
Okay, so right now there's no other water projects to address these village homesteads?
So as we speak, there's no funding available for any sewer infrastructure in all three senatorial districts in our village or homestead subdivisions.
Okay. So if that's the case, I think you might want to check with Secretary of Finance, if not through CUC, whether this 80 million from CUC is the same funding source as the Section D of ARPA that addresses water and wastewater.
So noted, Senator. Thank you for that information, and DPL would follow up.
Thank you. Land claims. How many land claims do we have that are currently active or open?
Thank you for that question, Senator. So for Rhoda, we have 3 active land claims and close to about 2 million in monetary compensation. And whenever we issue offer letter, it's the private landowners' right or prerogative to elect whether they want their private land to be, for land exchange or monetary compensation. And so that's for Rhoda. For Saipan, we have close to about 15 land exchange that are yet to be consummated, and about 26 million in monetary compensation. For Tinian, we don't have any, both for monetary compensation nor land exchange. Thank you.
And so for the Rhoda and Saipan, did all these landowners request for monetary compensation?
That is correct. So it's for a total of close to about 28 million. Yes.
Thank you. What about leases and permits in the Northern Islands? Do we have any?
So I am not aware of any leases or permits that have been executed for the Northern Islands, but I know that for the agricultural homestead, there are 5 agricultural homestead applications for the Northern Mariana Islands. The Northern Islands. Thank you.
So no revenue generated from the Northern Islands currently?
Not that I know of, not at this time.
Thank you. Have you visited and met with Rhoda and Tinian directors?
I have not, but I do intend to go down to visit our Rhoda offices as well as our Tinian offices.
Okay.
Yes, very soon.
All right. And just in general, what's your main focus within the next 4 years, if confirmed?
As Senator, first of all, the Department of Public Lands right now is going to be undergoing several amendments or improving, some SOPs, regulations with respect to the Department of Public Lands. There has been inconsistencies in the application of these regulations, and that would be a first and foremost. And at the same time, also, as I have mentioned in my testimony, what's very important in serving our community or our clientele is the turnaround time response to them. That is very important, and that's the only way that we can establish this open line of communication.
Thank you. Last question for now. Do we have any upcoming leases within the next 4 years that we should be looking at?
So as we speak, we do have several leases that are still under legal review with the Attorney General's office, and that's Coral Ocean Point, Brilliant Star, and both of these leases will be requiring the approval of both houses, the Senate and the House. As soon as that gets out and everything is good to go, we would have to meet with the Senate and the House for their approval. We have also Triple Star that's still under legal review. We have Canoa and I believe 153, and that is Rodolfo's. And in addition to that, we still have also, pending the Maniagaha as well as Camp Pacific. But I cannot further expound on these 2 leases because they're still under legal review. Thank you.
So you're saying we have COP and Brilliant Star that are needing legislative approval?
That is
and then
correct.
the others are just
yes,
on
because,
DPL?
Right, that is correct.
mean,
Because again, the regulation is that any public land leases above 5 hectares will require the approval of both houses, and that and COP falls under that category. On the other hand, Brilliant Star, from what I understand from our real estate director, is not. It does not meet. It's not a 5 hectare, but that. It's an extension, and so any public lands that requires legislative approval would have to fall under the category of having 5 hectares and above, or for an extension. Thank you.
And when is the lease ending on COP?
Like I said, that is still under legal review. And
As far as when it's ending?
well, again, it has to come over for, the legislative approval. It's a new lease.
Right. But when is the current lease ending? Or has it ended already?
It has not ended.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I yield for now, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Mangonia. Are there any other members who wish to ask questions? Recognize Senator Dennis Mendiola.
Good morning, Acting Secretary Santos. So it seems like your credentials really not at question here. I'm looking at a lot of your history, and you've done a lot of work. As a matter of fact, you worked for DPL, for that matter, in Rhoda. You started off in Rhoda. So with that, I wanted to ask if what are your challenges during your time as a DPL director in Rhoda, and how do you plan to address that here at now the state level, and how do you plan to execute and try and mitigate those issues?
Senator, can you be more specific with respect to your question? I think your question is compounded, so would it be possible for you to break it down so that we can?
So what are your challenges when you were the DPL director, and how do you plan to bring that to DPL director in Rhoda, and how do you plan that to bring that to Saipan as now the secretary of DPL at a larger scale?
So DPO Saipan, DPO Rhoda is just an office. It's just a district office where you know a little bit of each of the division here on Saipan. So it's on a smaller scale. However, you learn even if it's on a smaller scale, but everything that comes in. You learn a little bit of each of these divisions. Here on Saipan, the volume and the complexity of the issues that faces the divisions each day is more. There's more to resolve. There's more to learn, and it's very challenging.
So I take that there's a lot more that you got to learn for the complexity of Saipan.
Absolutely. Again, because on Rhoda, for example, it's just as I would say, it's not as complex as it is dealing here, because it's like this is where the real work, the real challenges, the issues. And working at DPL every day is a learning process. You resolve these issues in a lot of different ways, because again, they're not the same. You deal with you deal with TOA, you deal with leases, you deal with compliance, you deal with planning, you deal with homesteads, you deal with land claims, and land claims is just one of the most complex and a sensitive issue, and so forth and so forth.
I like that, so forth and so forth. So
There's more to be just.
I like that. But let me narrow it down as we start talking about. So you talk about enforcement. How can we bring that to both Rhoda and Tinian in regards to enforcement, and be a little bit more stricter in terms of holding these investors or landowners to their agreements? How do you plan on addressing that?
So that is a very good question. And so in a lot of cases, and a lot of times, our DPO and Tinian offices collaborate closely with our Saipan office. But how effective and how efficient will be determined would be dependent on the individual that monitors, that supervises our Rhoda and our Tinian office respectively. Senator, I know our division directors here on Saipan, they're very efficient in their work duties and responsibilities. And I just hope in the same way that it does too for our Rhoda and Tinian offices.
So let me narrow that down again, since you mentioned that the Saipan directors are effective, I guess, right? What about Rhoda and Tinian? Are they effective and efficient? That's being specific.
Okay, so we're talking directors here. I don't mind asking the question, Madam Chair, but if you would like to go on executive session, it's up to you, Chairwoman.
Thank you, Ms. Santos. Unfortunately, we cannot go into
Okay, thank you.
executive session.
Thank you. And so, can you rephrase that question again, Senator? I know you're leading me to something. Go ahead.
Okay, so actually, I'll just go ahead and withdraw that question. I don't want you to throw anybody under the bus, and that's why you're insinuating going into executive session. But the problem that we have is that we always talk about politics getting involved in terms of executing some of the tasks, the duties that we have in the executive branch or municipal branch, for that matter. So the reason why I'm asking this is that enforcement is probably one of our means of trying to get all these fees collected so that we can have revenue, a source of revenue to continue the projects, the task, or try and give it to, for example, the NMD. I hear that you're a great advocate of NMDs, and I as well as our Senate members here and our chairwoman. But I just want to make sure that when I ask these questions, I just want to make sure that it's addressed here in this chamber. Let me ask you about FINAF Homestead. I know that you were the director in that during that time, and I just want to note for constituents and for people to just understand what was the issue. And I understand that especially now, the financial situation is going to be challenging to address that infrastructure. But being now sitting at the secretary level, do you have any plans to address that and try and see that through?
Can we be more specific, Senator? Address the infrastructure, you mean?
Infrastructure. I'm talking
Okay.
about infrastructure.
Yes, and so thank you for that question. Unfortunately, again, DPL does not have the necessary funds for infrastructure, and it's for this reason that when we had our last meeting with Dr. Dallas, we informed him that because since CUC was requesting DPL to designate a certain partial of public lands over at close to Asgono in about 104,000 square meters. In return, we asked Dr. Dallas if there is a way that CUC can provide the necessary infrastructure, and that includes sewer, water, and power in our subdivisions. And again, not only in Saipan, but all the subdivisions respectively. And in return, and we even recommended to Dr. Dallas that if he can, seek grants under the State Recovery Fund, including EPA. And Dr. Dallas has yet to come back to, DPL. And so, in summary, DPL does not have the necessary fundings. However, there may be several grants out there that may be available for these infrastructures. That's one of the main reasons why DPL opened the position of a grant writer for that individual to be dedicated or assigned only for the purpose of seeking for any grants for infrastructures for our homestead subdivisions. And also, Senator, that's something that you may want to consider when you're passing legislations, perhaps also to, or if your office has any grants that you are aware of that perhaps DPL can tap into, we would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. I like how you just throw that right back to the Senate. And of course, the reason why we're asking this question is because, again, that is our sole responsibility here, is to legislate and try and figure out how we can transfer or push funds or means to try and help that process. We sit here and we listen to a lot of constituents ramble about a lot of the issues that weren't addressed in the past. So I want to make sure that I address that to you directly so that we can hear the plans and hold you accountable to that. Should you get confirmed? One of the last questions for now that I have is just I know that during my time as a special assistant for Homeland Security, we were trying to get some of the federal funds to pay the rental, I guess, or we're trying to turn it into a rental for the COVID when we held the Marianas Resort as a quarantine site. So I'm not sure if you've already seen that, or are you trying to push that matter? I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
I'm not familiar with that, but we can get back to you on that matter.
Okay, I appreciate that. Madam Chair, I yield for now.
Thank you, Senator Mendiola. I now recognize Senator Paul Manglonia.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Welcome and buenas, Senator Santos, and todos siya manggagigi gallery. Buenos dias para todos samzu. Taza pago no kula na musotod bazo sti ekonomiata gi Zamaranas enteramente no kulan taungog earlier na Marianas Southern pero kumiki para or tiutatete trebedyo na press release um, Roda Resort, no Mautsum, the Nuevo na Jota Mer Hokuk, Guasya planunya para turista, para na lala tati ekonomiya, no Gif makaristi na talili por ejemplo pago uno na dongkulo na resort, uno na Jota Resort, giza luta na no todesta no tauza bintesta intention niya. Pues often no mapuzo mistotod ba public land since October o katawzi October 2 pahina nakata usangan na mautso na esta ko lang for all practical purposes ma-shutdown ni Rota Resort. Usangani na umaliam za ni Drenyo za tawza planunya sigun gi meeting mommy no sangan na mabebendi mapega gi Facebook na mabebendi todo jista pago tali mga na todo mabebendi cosas niya tanto golf cart mosotor ba jista 6 meses desde na Octubre, Nobyembre, Disyembre, Enero, Febrero, Marzo sta frozen mes. What's going on with DPL? And I know that you're just there, Senator, but there's something wrong with the Department of Public Land in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. What don't kulo problema? I mean, sigun gi response na intigi when you wrote a letter of eviction to DPL, I became aware that Attorney Robert Torres wrote to DPL in November of 2021 that in response to a notice of violation in 2020 that the COVID, the pandemic was the reason for them not to move forward. So I don't know what the dealing is with the other leaseholders for golf courses or resorts developers here on Saipan, but I don't know that they responded to that. DPO ever responded back and said, okay, we'll give you a break on your land leases. As a matter of fact, they're according to believe your letter of eviction, they're in arrears up to almost $700,000. My point is DPL, I believe one of the division under the division of real estate, right? Their main, I guess, task is to process, retain long-term leases on public lands in order to ensure sustainable revenue in leveraging cinemized public lands. So that's the main goal, and it appears to me that the DPL has failed us on that in that regards. I am very concerned because in order to bring back the economy of the cinema and because there's others, by the way, that we should also be evicting today. But Roda Resort, I'm particularly concerned because that's that's it for tourism if that thing does not go back into operation soon. So, Senator, I hope can I mean, let me ask. Do you have attorneys at DPL that are looking into all of these issues? Because I'm afraid, you know. By the way, let me go back, Madam Chair. The response that I get from DPL was a short half a page letter to my 2 pages letter, saying all this about DPL, and they did not even cover the issues that I raised in my letter. The only thing they told me back is you're welcome to come in and pay 50 cents per page for whatever document you want. They didn't even talk about Roda Resort, and I didn't even know in that response whether you have written a notice of violation or what. It's like as if just another day at the office. I'm very concerned, and so I feel like we gotta get the best lawyers. Rhoda Resort, Mr. Cho has no plan. Kick him out. I'm sorry to speak this way, but we need to get him out. Uh, put out an RFP and get a new investor in so that we can open our golf courses, our golf course bank, open the hotel. But as in one of our prime meeting, I mentioned that we need to get an as-built on which is private land, which is public land, because we're talking about almost close to 200 hectares of public land, and we cannot just see it another 6 months, playing around with Mr. Cho, whose only motive is to try to sell it and make a profit before we actually, we're gonna be in court for the next 2 to 3 years before we can actually get another investor. And by the way, there's only maybe 6 to 7 years left in the lease agreement, and so we haven't talked about the private land that the 55-year lease is maybe just 20 years left or less. So I'm sorry for that long statement, but Senator, can you talk to us? What's the plan here to get the land back, get it in operation?
So thank you, Senator Mangloni, and I feel you. And so, prior to executing a notice of default, notice of termination, notice of notice to vacate, there is a process. These are just not automatic. These notices are just not automatic. There is a process, and of course, before we come to notices of, in this case, before we even executed this notice of termination to Rhoda Resort, this letter had undergone several legal reviews. DPL. The AG's office provides legal, review, legal opinion, legal service to the Department of Public Lands, and so yes, the Rhoda Resort was issued this notice on March 8th. It was sent to the owners of Rhoda Resort on March 10th through a certified mail. We have yet to receive a receipt or a notice that or card that it was received by the owners. But at any rate, we gave the Rhoda Resort 15 days. 15 days of the 15 days notice, and that 15 days notice has already expired. We're going to go to the next process, and the next process is to have this notice of termination be recorded, and then from there, DPO is going to conduct an as-built on the public lands, and the reason being is because it's not only public lands here, as if you have echoed. There's also some public lands, and so in order for us to RFP this, we have to ascertain where's public lands and where are our public private lands, and after that. After sending the surveyors down to Rhoda to conduct that as-built, we would have to send out an RFP, and hopefully by that time we would be able to get potential investors and get the highest bidder.
Thank you, Senator. I guess my concern is that I hope that DPL can actually put this as a major concern under DPL. I don't think that we can continue to just do what we've been doing in the past and just say, here, look into this. Let's see what we can do next week. I think there should be a special task force under DPL. Get everybody on board. We need to get attorneys, because it will cost more to just meet with your, I don't know if DPL uses the AG, assistant AG, and just meet whenever they meet. No, I think that we need attention to this, because we're talking about 200 hectares of public land. We're talking about the whole economy of Florida dependent on, pushing this forward to promote tourism and employment, and as what as the people supported this golf course because it was supposed to bring employment and improve our tourism there. And so I hope that is, see, my letter 6 months ago, and I'm glad that when you got on board, you issued a notice of eviction. But I think that we need to put attorneys in here and meet every other day. Where are we? As you mentioned, last week was the deadline for the 15-day response. So what have we done this week? It's like we have to keep moving on, because I believe that if we let this go, it's going to be another 2 to 3 years that facility will be shut down. And so we don't need all the resort and the land leases under DPL to be all under in litigation before the court. And so can I ask you what has DPL or did DPL respond back to Attorney Torres on their request for pandemic? Did you assist them as far as any of our public land leases with the pandemic assistance they requested?
From it is my understanding that no rent payments have been waived, and again, DPO is co-trustee with MPLT, and there's, I mean, no, not that I know of. There's no lease that.
But
or
so
rent
those
payments that have been waived.
$600,000 is that for the 2 years of rental? How many years are we talking about? They have been in arrears.
So the 620, I mean, the 639,000 was in arrears beginning 2020 until present, and that continues to compound. Interest continues to compound as long as World Resort does not come in and make any payments.
Okay, and when DPL lease Rhoda Resort, the government land, how do we handle? Are you clear on how we handle the private land? Did we ask them to lease the government the private land, then lease it back as one contiguous partial?
That was not during my tenure. I have no details to that.
Yeah, so can you look into that? Because
Yeah.
I think all future public land leases should require that the company requesting the lease should first lease to public land all their private land holdings in that area, in that in that project site, so that something happens like this, we don't have to be concerned that there's a private land on hole number 7 and hole number 12 and number 15. And now if we're to take this back and the private property, the leasehold interest still belongs to Rhoda Resort, are we going to build another 3 holes somewhere adjacent to DPL? I think that all future public land leases, and attorney, I hope you're listening. We if not, then we need to change the law on that and require that all private land be leased to DPL and then leased back to the developer. But can you verify that if that's the situation here? And moving forward in other renewal, we need to ensure that.
We can look into that, Senator, and get back to you.
Do you know?
If-
Thank you. Do you know if the hotel, the Rhoda Resort, on private land?
So it is my understanding that the hotel buildings are on public lands.
Public land.
Public lands, yes.
Okay. And the generator, I mean
The generator, including the generator, it's on public lands.
public land.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Which brings me to Mariana's Resort. Okay. Here's Mariana's Resort is the former Camp Pacific, and I understand we are in court on that, and we're talking, I believe, significantly larger than Rhoda Resort, maybe 400 hectares in that area that is under Mariana's Resort.
So Mariana's Resort, I believe, is about, I think 100 and Mariana's Resort. I do not have the information.
Yeah, that must be
just
at
yet, but
least
I can
double
get
the
it.
size of Rhoda Resort, because you're
Yes.
talking about the beach side and the mountain
I
side.
think it's
but
about 104 or 140.
140.
140,000 square meters.
So
Yes.
only 140 hectares then. But
Yes, that is
but Senator, my I know that we are in court with this because of some issues with the RFP. But how did we get into that mess?
talking about the Camp
The
Pacific.
Marianas Camp Pacific, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, can we settle that so that, because this is going to take 2, 3, maybe 4 years. And I understand that the proposal was to do $200 million development there.
It's,
Why can't we sit down? I mean, because my understanding was it's a screw up by our own attorney. And then when it comes to the AG, they wouldn't sign it. So it seems there's, please look into the ongoings at the the real estate division or wherever that they're processing this RFP, because this is costing us, right, employment and economic development.
so Camp Pacific, again, the senator is under legal review, and I cannot further elaborate on that.
Well, have settlement been explored?
Not that I know of.
Mhm. And what about IPI, Senator, the Imperial Pacific? In one of our meetings by professionals, they recommend that, and they recommend that, strongly recommend. In fact, that's our only option, according to them, is to take away the license of IPI. So one of the angle is because they're falling behind on their payment. What's the situation with the land lease on IPI?
Okay, so there is a draft that is to be finalized, and that is a notice of default. And again, the notice of default on their on their uh, on their payments. Was it? Hold on. Payments for IPI? Correction on that, on their security deposit.
Notice of default?
Yes.
Notice of default.
But then again, the notice
How
is due
much
under
public land are we talking about?
So for IPI, it's about 1.9 hectares. It's about 19,000 square meters.
Of public land.
Public lands, yes.
Okay, thank you. And Kingfisher, please.
Okay, what about Kingfisher?
Well, Kingfisher, if I haven't played golf in 4 years, but for the players, I know that they're telling me that the carts are falling apart. There's been a couple accidents, and in fact, they almost took them to court. But I think we need to meet with them and ask, because they have maybe less than 8 years of lease term, and I think that this is really bad for tourism in the CNMI, to have our visitors be playing in a facility where there's tangan all over the area, fairways. So I think that this is what I was mentioning earlier. These are cinema public lands. There are assets, so we shouldn't be just sitting on the side and not being proactive in trying to clean this up. And so my point is, we should meet with them, sit down with the investors, and we should sit down, because there are maybe last Japanese investors in the CNMI, and ask them how we can help them or what's their plan. If they don't have a plan, then we should start trying to do something about the golf course.
So thank you for that, Senator Manglonia. Kingfisher, I mean, public lands on Kingfisher is about 407,000 square meters. You're concerned about the maintenance of those courts, and perhaps and at one time when we had a meeting about the facility, about the exposed of some electrical wirings, we wrote a letter to Senator Corina Magofdia that, again, public lands authority is only to manage and dispose public lands, and those facilities at Kingfisher are situated on private lands. And on that same letter, we also informed the senator that perhaps this is a matter that we can forward or convey over to the Department of Public Works, since they're in charge of the building code. Thank you.
Also, there was a letter from DPL
Yes.
to the
To-
owners of
To no, to Senator Corina Magofnia. Yes.
Oh, okay. But I would think that DPL should also issue a letter to them saying, look at your facility, look at your cars, look at, what are your plans to upgrade the facility? I think that it
So-
calls for some concern to warn them that we're aware of, you're not doing proper regular maintenance.
So again, the DPO only inspects and inspects public lands. But then again, we can bring this to the attention of Kingfisher, where the facility is, although it's situated on private land. That was our observation.
So Kingfisher has more private land, I understand, since what you're saying is only about 40 hectares of public land.
So public, yes. So public lands on Kingfisher is only about
40 hectares.
40,700 square meters, so about 40 hectares. I'm not too sure how much is private lands, but that's how much we know public lands.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear how large of a public land that
40.
Or 40
I'm sorry, it's 407,000.
square meter, which is about 40 hectares.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Canoa Resort is up for renewal soon, Senator?
Yes, and as I mentioned earlier, it's still with the Office of the Attorney General's, the Attorney General's office.
Oh, and does it need legislative
It does
approval?
not, because it's less than 5 hectares.
But if it's less than 5 hectares, but more than 25 years, wouldn't that be require a legislative approval?
I am not
If it's
sure
more
of
than
that.
25 years?
Yeah, I am not
30?
sure of that, but anything below 5 hectares, anything below 5 hectares does not require the approval of the legislature. Anything above does.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll look into that, because I assume that there are two criteria there, below or if less than 25 years. I'm not sure on that, but we'll look into that. Senator, Madam Chair, I can yield to other members. I can come back later, but if you're patient, I just want to maybe ask about Landcom, and then I'll yield to other members.
Okay.
Okay, so on the land compensation, there's I'm sure there are other letters like this, but this one is from a resident of Rhoda. They wrote a letter to him November 2022, and they made an offer for because we're working on Route 100 and we're trying to pay up all the private landowners there, and there was a signed letter by DPL actually making an offer to Mr. Joaquin Songsung Manglonia. They made an offer. He signed. He wrote back, and then I guess still waiting. Are we making offers even if there's no more money in the Landcom account? I'm sure that there are others similar letters that are out.
So Senator, this is a process. After DPL, I received the package from the Department of Public Works. DPL would have to verify those documents first, and then second, DPL
Oh no, this is coming from DPL. DPL wrote a letter to him in November saying, please accept our offer. And he wrote a letter back and said, yes, I accept it. And the offer, they have already, did, I guess, an appraisal and all that. It's a offer.
Okay, so I think that's one of those land claims cases that are still with the Office of the Attorney General. And if I stand to be corrected, I would have to go back to our office and confer with the land claims director and get back to you on that. But I think that's the update on that particular claims case from Rhoda.
But my question is, is DPL still giving out letters? I thought they told him that there's no money, I believe. Would you know whether there's money or
So as we
not?
speak, there's no, as far as I know, there's no funding for any monetary compensation.
So why are they writing letters?
Letters for monetary compensation?
Yes, they're writing, thank you for your.
So this is my understanding that even if there's no funding availability, they still have to go through the process. So in the event that there is money available for monetary compensation, those cases would have to be addressed or resolved.
But they need to inform the landowners that we're gonna offer you, but there's no money, so that they, landowners feel like they're playing politics with them. That how many other landowners got the same letter, and maybe they're thinking number 2, 3, 4 are getting theirs through finance. So it seems like they have to work hard with DPL, then they have to call the Attorney General, then they have to call finance, and then when they call finance, they hear some people are getting it and some are not getting it, and
So I'm not too sure how finance administers the payment, but all I know is that DPO does process, there's funding or no funding
yeah, so
available.
please inform them, make them sign a document that we're offering you, but it's subject to availability of funding, so that they know.
We make that very clear, Senator, to our clients, yes.
So for the record, there is no money. You mentioned 26 million for Saipan land compensation and 2 million for Rhoda compensation and none for Tinian. So for the record, there's zero money in this account.
That is correct, and unless the legislature appropriates funding for land compensation, yes.
And can you provide us with how much was there in the last 3 years at least, and where it went? Is there such a record at DPL you can provide?
We can provide what is available from our office.
Oh, you don't finance keep those records, or?
Only what we have in our office, and you can always request the Department of Finance as well.
Okay, because I know in one of the financial audits, right? There was a concern about you setting up an account at DPL and then another account at finance, and you're not like reconciling them. Is that still an issue? Is that the reason?
I don't think that is the reason, but that is one of the recommendations made by the transition report for the Department of Public Lands to stop open with the Department of Finance to establish that DPO operational fund, and that is also as per Public Law 15-2, Section 103C, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Who keeps track of the land compensation monies? Your office or finance?
Because we don't appropriate funds for land compensation, we don't keep those records, but we do have records when the land claims is consummated. It has to be Department of Finance.
Okay, so knowing how much they have there, you approve land compensation for the landowners.
We process
So maybe but can you provide us with that, like the last 3-4 years, how much money the legislature gave to land compensation? Because I remember when we had monies coming in from the casino revenues, we were appropriating for land comp, and so I guess that was 3-4 years ago. So can we get a breakdown of the total monies that were set aside for land comp, and did we actually? I guess I'm after. Did we actually spend all those monies?
DPL would not have that. Again, DPL would not have that accurate information because we do not control, we do not distribute the monetary compensation. You would have to inquire that from the Department of Finance.
But you would know how much you approve, right? Because it has to go to DPL to approve for payments.
For monetary, and that's the record that I was referring to. That I would have to go back.
Okay, so just give us what you have then.
Yes.
Thank you, Vicente. Well, I'm gonna you for now, but let me just ask you, Route 100. Can you provide the delegation, the committee, what's pending as far as Route 100 for land compensation or land exchange? We're trying to work in restarting again the repaving of the road, the perimeter road around that side of Rhoda. And the problem is all these small patches of private land. So can you give us a listing of the pending properties there? But at the same time, as we requested before, we need also your assistance in providing us with stretches of 1 mile or 2 miles so that we can begin trying to find funding so we can start paving those sections at a time.
So we
So
can provide those pending land exchanges, um, affected by the Route 100. I know that there's still several private landowners who have yet to be compensated, and it could be, various reasons. It could be that they need to go to a probate. Or they elected monetary and we don't have the monetary. It could be that they wanted land exchange, but then with that we have to go through, like appraisals and so forth.
The Senator Montaposo, then I asked this to Public Works, but I'm going to ask you also. Can you provide us with the issue on Montaposo and Isigalaidi road up from Navy Hills and the Texas Road? Are those clear now that the government can proceed with improvement of the roads there?
Yes,
Is
we
it
can
rest?
provide that
Tafaneno
information on the
Tali,
letter.
if
So
the
you're talking about
this is on Saipan, Montapocho,
for
whether they're all clear, the right of way and the Galaidi Road and the Texas Road. For now, no, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Maglonia. Recognize Senator Dennis Mendiola.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a few follow-up questions before I just wrap this up. So, roughly 80 days into my seat as a senator, freshman legislator, Senator Poe keeps calling you senator, so acting secretary. Going back to your time as a House of Representatives senator, 2 terms, I'm interested to know, or maybe more of a statement, that maybe you can come into my office and help me try and fix some of these issues that, or try and help me create legislation to help DPO now that you're sitting as the secretary, from your time as the director, House of Representative, senator twice. Now maybe we can start addressing this matter, as a sitting senator, as a representation for the people of Rhoda.
I greatly appreciate that, Senator, for your information. DPO is crafting several legislations and as well as amending the Constitution. As my uncle said, I think it's about time that our Constitution should be renovated. Thank you.
I agree. Maybe we need to start coming up with, to meet modern times, because some of the laws and provisions that are implemented are kind of starting to collide. I also want to mention about IPI. Kind of interested because I've heard from many constituents in the public about how public land and private land, the IPI built structure, and it's encroaching both. So I want to just hear your thoughts on that. I mean, how can we prevent that in the future from happening so that when there's an issue with public land, we don't have to negotiate with both private and public land at the same time? So I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
I do not know if I can specifically answer to that, Senator, because I do not control the private properties of private landowners. But then again, we can discuss about
Sure.
public lands and how IPI was built. Yes, it was a combination of private lands and public lands, and perhaps at the time there was just not enough public lands. However, there were adjoining private lands, and therefore
No, I
they
agree.
turned into-
So I agree
yes.
with you with it. We don't control private land, but we do promulgate regulations where we can address this issue so that we can prevent it from happening. That's my concern here, is more of how do we promulgate regulations so that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot with those 2 properties. So now if there's an issue with the lease, both property, or the property is now sitting on both private and public. So it's going to be an issue for us to negotiate as public land, because we also have to go and speak to the private owners. And should they not agree, doesn't matter what the public land wants to do with the property, because now it's sitting on both properties, public and private. So that's why I just wanted to mention that it's more on the issue of enforcement, promulgating regulations, so that we can ensure that this matter don't affect us in the future.
Yes, thank you, Senator. And you have a very good legal counsel here, Council Bermudez, and you have also Council Hantonet, who can start drafting those legislations, send it to our office. We can make, comments, or we can visit your office and work together in order again to
Absolutely.
improve some of these legislations, including, like my uncle said, instead of sending amending, renovating the Constitution.
Sure, absolutely. And the reason why I mentioned this is because, again, you were sitting senator for 2 terms. And, now that it's on my seat as a freshman legislator, again, roughly 80 days into my term, these are some of the issues that I felt that should have been addressed a long time ago. So I just want to make sure that I state that for the record. Another issue that I wanted to bring up, and again, this is coming from the mayor, the mayor of Rhoda, and I just wanted to get your thought on her proposed plan to create a youth center. And I know she spoke to you already, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on that for the record.
Okay, so the primary purpose of the mayor's visit to our office was to request for designation for particular public lands at Sinapalu, and that is the remaining public lands, the unused public lands between the softball and the judicial complex. And so I received information from the director of planning that those in fact have been redesignated back to the former Mayor Ephraim Atalik. So those are available for the municipalities use. But then, when we designate public lands, there are specific terms and conditions, and if the execution of the designation is in violation of the terms and conditions, that DPL will have the authority to revoke or rescind the designation.
Understood. Thank you. And again, I just want to make sure that we put that on the record. No, so I'm interested in making sure that the youth center, it encompasses our entire municipality's youth, and we're talking about, promoting health, wellness, all this stuff, right? So that we can try and increase our mortality rate and make sure that our people are healthy. So I thought that when the mayor came to me about this, proposing to write a grant to create a youth center, or, a sports facility for, a renowned sports facility for the municipality of Rhoda, I thought it was a great idea. And I just wanted to make sure that, for the record, that I asked you this question, and we make sure that that you support that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, absolutely for our youth and our citizens and our people, of course. And it's not the only public land that has been designated to the municipality. There are also a portion of public land situated at Sinapalu 3, and that is where the agriculture facility is located. That also is available for the municipality.
Thank you for that. Actually, that's a great location as well. So yeah, whichever the mayor decides, I'm for supporting it. So I just want to make sure that we state that for the record, so that we can get your support for that. Madam Chair, I yield for now.
Thank you, Senator Mendiola. One moment. I have a few questions I'd like to ask, and mainly it's just piggybacking off of whatever was discussed here so far. But before I forget, I'd like to state for the record that we also received a letter of written support from Ms. Mary Lou Villagomez. She is an employee of the Commonwealth Utilities Corporation. First, I'd like to ask you, Acting Secretary, if this committee can get an organizational chart of DPL and a phone directory for our official records.
Yes, Chair, we can provide that.
Thank you.
Yes.
And first is the Can Pacific lease, and you've already stated a few things about it, that there is an active lease. It's in litigation under review with the Attorney General's office, and that you're leaning towards the termination of that lease. Is that correct?
So there is no active lease as of now.
Okay.
But the Can Pacific is still under legal review, and again, I cannot further expound or elaborate on that matter.
Fair enough. Bank accounts for DPL. Um, I am aware that in the past, DPL has had several bank accounts in FDIC and non-FDIC financial institutions in the CNMI. Is that still the case today? And if so, how many bank accounts exactly does DPL have?
So in response to the first question, Chair, I am not sure. I cannot ascertain that there is, DPO is in the possession of a bank account that is not FDIC. And if there is one, it's FDIC, and that's Bank of Guam. Yes.
Okay, my apologies if I was mistaken, but I know there was some in the past. So that's why I'm asking, is it still the current situation? A while back, there was a situation with Bank of Saipan. DPL had an account with Bank of Saipan. And this led to federal conviction in which the Bank of Saipan utilized DPL funds. Do you know if Bank of Saipan has paid back what they took from DPL account at that time?
I am not aware of that, Madam Chair. No, I'm not.
Okay, I'd like to follow up that with you
Yes.
at a later time.
Yes. Yes.
If you could look into it.
Yes. Yes, I will.
Thank you. And again, speaking of DPL accounts, the transition report identified that DPL is not in compliance with Public Law 15-2, specifically that Public Law 15-2 mandates that Department of Finance manage all the accounting functions of DPL, including monitoring its general ledger. Revenues are deposited into bank accounts that are separate from the CNMI general fund bank accounts. And is that the situation today?
So, Madam Chair, as I've earlier articulated, the Department of Public Lands has written a letter to the Acting Secretary of Finance, Tracy Narita, way back in March 16, 2023, and this is to establish the Department of Public Lands Operation Funds, and such should be maintained with the Department of Finance. I know that the Acting Secretary has received this because there was an indication here that it has been received by the Department of Finance, and but as of this date, we have not received any response from the Acting Secretary. And again, I'm sure that when everything else is settled with all this, financial situation, that she would be responding to us. I know that I have instructed, or I have requested our division, the Director of Finance and Accounting at DPO, to make a follow-up, and she did. And we have not received any response, but then again, we have confidence that the Acting Secretary will respond to us shortly.
Okay, so DPL is in the process of curing that violation.
Yes,
Okay.
and once we address, once we establish this operational funds, that everything else that has been cited here in the transition team report will be addressed, because we need to establish this first. I know in the past there have been several attempts to establish this, but it just never materialized. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, land claims. I heard you earlier saying Rhoda had 3 active land exchange in the process,
That is correct.
and about $2 million worth of land compensation, or has that been dispersed?
Not yet.
Okay. 2 million for Rhoda for land compensation.
For monetary compensation, that
Okay.
is correct.
And then how many for Tinian Nun?
For Tinian Nun,
And how many for Saipan?
for
How
Saipan,
much?
it's about $26 million. And this is, different private landowners.
Okay. What was the funding source of the 3.1 million that was dispersed in 2022 for land compensation?
That I do not have the details, but I can get back to you on that.
I would appreciate that. As of 2022, a total of 1,056 lots were surveyed, and the breakdown is as follows: Saipan 330, Tinian 456, and Rhoda 270 70 parcels. Additionally, a total of 17 land claims were issued in the amount of 3.1 million. This is the one I was alluding to. And I would like to, this committee would appreciate receiving any records you may have with respect to land compensation, land exchanges. And you mentioned that you did not have the records because Department of Finance is responsible and has the authority and obligation to disperse those funds. So whatever records you may have at public lands with respect to land compensation, land exchange in the last at least 2 years.
We will provide those information, Madam Chair. And again, that information would be coming up from our land claims division. And then that would satisfy your request as well as that of Senator Manglonia, yes.
Thank you. I'd like to also include the 32 quitclaim deeds for that were issued to qualified homestead applicants.
Is that quitclaim deeds for Saipan
Homesteads.
homesteaders or Tinian or Rhoda homesteaders?
The transition report did not identify which land, but Saipan, Tinian, or Rhoda records would be fine.
Yeah, so
All
your transition
records.
report may be different from what I have
Okay.
here. So, but yes, maybe I can get a copy of that and we would be
Sure.
able to address that. Thank you.
And is the moratorium for homestead still in effect? The application?
So I understand for Saipan it is by
For
virtue of the
Saipan.
fact that we do not have any more, public lands, but Rhoda and Tinian, they're still open. In fact, DPL is getting ready to lottery close to about 150 agricultural homestead lots for the island of Tinian. And this is at Castito,
Okay.
agricultural homestead subdivision, yes.
Castizo, right, in Tinian?
Said, no?
This is agriculture for Tinian, yes.
Oh, agriculture. What about village homesteads, to build a home? Is
Also-
it the same? Does Tinian have a?
So, yes, Tinian do have several village homestead subdivisions.
Okay. And when do you expect this lottery? Can you give
So-
us a time frame?
So I was discussing this with our planning division and director, and she has indicated to me that the survey map has been completed, and that survey map has been, the agricultural homestead lots have been partial into 500 square meters, and that we're just waiting to have that survey map recorded before we start lottering or signing these agricultural homestead lots for our agricultural applicants on Tinian. And of course, we have also consulted with our director for the Tinian office to start calling in this, potential of applicants to start updating their application. So when the time comes to start lottering, their applications or their portfolio are updated.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to ask you about the DPO and Docomo PAC lease. Can you share us with this committee your thoughts on that and what is the issue right now? I understand DPL may be entering litigation with that or is currently in litigation.
I'm not aware of that, Chair.
Okay. That also I would like to follow up with you. As to Rhoda, the Papa Hotel, how long has that lease been terminated?
Oh, I think that's
30?
maybe 20, 30 years ago, Senator Manglonia. Yeah, that was way back, maybe during the late 80s, early 90s.
And what are the plans for that? Is that on public land?
That is an inventory, yes, of public
So
lands,
what
yes.
is the plan for that? Why hasn't
Well,
DPO ever marketed that?
very good question, Chair. And again, when we send our surveyors down to Rhoda to conduct this as-built on the Rhoda Resort, Rhoda Palpoto is going to be part of, that area to be for an as-built to be performed on.
Okay. I will be visiting Rhoda sometime this month to bring investors and they'd like to take a look at that. So I will give you a heads up on that.
Greatly appreciate that, Chair. Thank you for considering Rhoda in, economic development.
Most definitely. Tinian, are there any commercial leases in Tinian? currently?
Tinian, there are a few. We're working on also on the outer city. A notice has yet to be executed. It's still under legal review.
How many commercial leases are you guys negotiating with?
I do not have.
Okay.
What's that again, Chair? Can you repeat the question?
How many are you guys? How many commercial leases is DPL in negotiations with?
For Tinian at
For
this
Tinian,
time,
for Tinian.
I do not have that information at this time.
But you mentioned there were 3 currently existing. Is that correct?
On Tinian?
Yes.
I know. I mean, I thought I said that we are working on a letter with
Okay.
respect to the outer city corporation.
So that's the only one that you know of
Yes.
currently in negotiations. Okay.
Not in negotiations,
Oh.
but a notice.
Notice to
Yes.
award or notice to.
A notice to terminate their lease.
Oh, to terminate. I understand that you can't get into these in depth, these terminations because of legal issues, and we cannot go into executive session during committees. The alternative to an executive session is that we go on recess. I'm not willing to do that at this time because we can and probably will call you in later
Mhm.
once you get a better understanding of what's, I know you've just only been there recently. So until you can get a better understanding of everything that is happening at DPL with respect to commercial leases and permits, we can and probably will be calling you in just to let you know.
Thank you, Chair.
Going back to Tinian, I'm sorry, with respect to the agricultural lots in Castizo, you said, right?
That's correct.
Your predecessor stated previously that there is approximately $80 million available for that to improve that. Is that funding still? Are you aware of that? And is that funding still available?
Yeah, I'm not aware of such funding, and I'm not aware of that at all.
Okay, thank you. I'll note that for our future conversations. I would like to ask about the status of the Maniagaha Master Concessionaire lease. There are 3 temporary concessionaires. There was 3. I don't know the status of that. I do know that we received many calls that the 3 temporary concessionaires were given little to no notice to vacate Maniagaha. Can you share your thoughts with us on that?
Okay, so with respect to the Maniagaha special concessionaire permit, again, I cannot further enlighten the.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. And so again, going back with respect to the Maniagaha special concessionaire, at this time, I cannot further enlighten this body because it's under legal review. And with respect to your question of some temporary concessionaires out there, yes, there is. We have 3. They are operating, and none of these 3 has been given a notice to vacate or notice of termination with regards to their temporary occupancy agreement.
Thank you for that update because apparently we were given the wrong information. And that happens sometimes. IPI lease. Are they current in their payments to DPL?
IPI, yes, with respect to their payments except for their security deposit. And again, as I have articulated earlier, a letter would be issued to them in regards to that matter.
Okay. Do you know how much DPL is expecting from
I think
this?
it's about 170 some, around 170 some $1,000.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about DPL's community outreach, specifically the scholarship that has been administered by the Department of Public Lands, I think over the last 3 or 4 years. And while scholarship is a good thing for our students, graduating students, I wanted to ask you more detail and understand what's going on with that. And first question, how did DPL come about to
So,
do a
yes.
community outreach for scholarship?
So, Madam Chair, I do not know the details as to the
Okay.
creation of the scholarship program, but from the monthly report that I received, this scholarship is been administered through the real estate division of the Department of Public Lands, and that there were at one time a total of 37 submissions that was received by the department, and these essays were reviewed and they were awarded in December of 2022.
Okay, did this program go through a legal counsel as to
I
approval?
do
Okay,
not have the answer to that, but I can get back to you on that.
fair enough. Thank you. And I wonder this because I wanted to ask you the next question. How does the community outreach, the scholarship, help DPL in its mission and objectives to provide suitable homesteads, to conduct research and investigation on all land claims, land exchange, land and compensation? How does the scholarship provide land mapping research support to DPL? These are all the mandates of DPL. So I'm wondering, how does the scholarship program assist DPL in general with long-term leases and the like?
Yes, so
Can I,
yes, so
would you lend your thoughts on that?
yes, so again, Chair, I would have to get back to you on that because
Okay.
I was not present during the creation of this scholarship. Neither do I know its mission or its vision. And so, yeah, I would have to.
We would appreciate that because my concern is that by law, any excess of operational funds for DPL, those funds should be going to MPLT to grow the portfolio, the corpus of Marianas Public Land Trust. So
And I totally agree with you on that, Chair, that any diversion of
I
revenues
agree, it's a
generated from
diversion.
public lands that is not authorized by the Constitution is in direct violation of Article 11, Section 6 of our Constitution. And
Thank
I
you for
totally agree.
appreciating the Constitution. I yield for now unless recognize Senator Donald Minglonia. And then just to let everybody know, we will go to probably about 12:30 before we break for a recess. Thank you. Recognize Senator Minglonia. Donald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep it short. Just a couple of follow-up in regards to village homesteads. I know I mentioned that there was 80 million, but you did clarify that this was something that was going to be provided by CUC, but is no longer available. I know this water and wastewater project was supposed to assist in the different village homesteads. And so I just want to find out, based on this report that I have, the Asgono property, the Asgono location still has that 330 lots that are pending,
That
that is ready for distribution, correct?
that is correct, Senator. And again, at the time when DPO was given the affirmative that there's that supposedly funds, DPO went ahead and allotted 30 until they were advised or informed by CUC that those funds are not to be used for new developments, and so they stopped from further laundering the remaining lots.
So
But
how
yes,
much is needed to
for
address Asgono property?
for sewer, for infrastructure, it's about 8 million.
8 million just to
Yeah.
address.
So total for including Rhoda and Tinian, yeah, it's about that, about 80 some million.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the different amounts for these different sections. Marple Heights, phase 2.
Marple Heights, they have been assigned lots.
They're all 456 lots have been assigned.
About 300
And so the remaining is due to
for lotteries.
infrastructure as well issues, or is that?
Yes.
And how much is needed to address that concern?
So I'm not too sure, but we know that our assessment totals close to about what 80 some billion dollars.
Right.
so-
And that's why I'm asking for
so-
the different price amounts so that we can share this with the delegation to try to see how we can get funding for these different village homestead.
So in regards to that question, we can provide that, Senator, as soon as we get the information
okay.
from our homestead division.
Appreciate that. FINAFA is still at 125,
FINAFA, I believe so. If not 145, 125.
and nothing out of that has already been
All of it
lotteried
have been
out.
awarded, including Doogie. And Doogie also is about 145, 148.
So these are already
So those have already been assigned.
okay. How much to address FINAFA?
With respect to infrastructure, that would be, a little bit more, again, considering the terrain, it's kind of rough as there up there as well as Doogie. So maybe in the tune of about 10 million, or maybe 20 million for FINAFA as well as Doogie.
So you need about 20 million for both Doogie and FINAFA. And you don't have the figure for Marple Heights.
Yeah, not at this time.
How recently has DPL issued quitclaim deeds?
When was the last quitclaim deed that was issued?
Yes.
I do not have that information.
Okay.
But since I came in, there has not been the quitclaim deed that have been issued, but I know that there are pending quitclaim deed that has yet to be issued.
Do you know how many are pending?
On Rhoda, I think there's several from Rhoda.
Overall?
From Rhoda over, I think.
No,
there's
I mean
about
like
seven.
Sinamai one.
Okay, so I only see those files, folders from Rhoda, and that's about what, 10? About 10.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much,
Thank you, Senator.
Senator. You're at this time, Chair.
Any other members? Recognize Senator Paul Manglonia for the last round.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Senator, on the Doogie Homestead, I want to inform you, and I hope that you can make it your project at DPL. The delegation have actually approved with the CIP office funding to bring the main water line from Rhoda Resort Road all the way to Doogie, to the entrance of Doogie Homestead. There's money available. It's just a matter of now pushing the project. So I hope you can work with CIP office to move the project. They originally had we're working on a design for the whole homestead, but I think we put it in phase so that we can immediately bring the water line to the entrance of the homestead. So please, can you please follow up, work with them so they can proceed on that project immediately?
Thank you for that, Senator, and we would closely collaborate with the CIP office.
Okay. And going back to Rhoda Resort, I know that in your eviction letter, you mentioned about the Docomo, the illegal subleasing. I think you might need to work with Rhoda Resort. I don't know how much business Docomo has down on Rhoda, but if we tell them to take down their antennas, wouldn't that affect those subscribers?
Yes.
And
So we have met. So that's part of the citations in my notice of termination to Rhoda Resort is entering into a sublease with Docomo without the prior consent or authorization of DPL. We have met with Docomo, and
Okay.
according to Docomo, because Rhoda Resort has shut off its generator, its power plant, so it's no longer commissioned. And
So
they have
it's only for that area then, you're
yes,
saying?
and although they took down the antenna, but I think the structure is still on the ground. So
Okay.
yes, we're going to be working with the
Thank you.
homeowner.
And what about the security for the at the Rhoda Resort, the generator? I'm worried that the copper wires in the buildings and the
So yes,
generator,
yes.
are they, is DPL handling that?
Yeah, so in response, Senator, to that, and again, as I have stated earlier, as soon as Rhoda Resort public land property reverts to public land in our inventory, we would have to start providing the necessary security as well as the maintenance.
Well, I'm
of the-
worried that today, things might be missing from the wires and all that. And so, uh, I don't know. I think that it's our interest
Yes.
to.
So we will be assigning our staff down there to be what's this monitoring the public lands, the
Okay,
area.
please see what we can do because
Yes.
I'm worried that once those copper wires are gone, and also even with the engines, right? There are two 1 megawatt generators there, and maybe we can discuss with CUC. So at one point, CUC was using those two generators as backup, and maybe CUC can look into that.
Yeah. So, Senator, for your information on the notice of termination, what would be reverted back to public lands is only the buildings, the fixtures and improvements, and equipment is not included.
That's pretty much a fixture. It's kind of
Well, if that's the interpretation of our legal counsel, then
oh man, yeah.
then that
Or-
would be would then be belongs to public lands. We would have to what's this perhaps ask our legal counsel if the power plant is part of the possession that DPO would have to take back from Rhoda Resort.
Okay. Thank you. I want to talk a little bit about the East Harbor. As you know, I'm sure you're familiar with the East Harbor land designation. For years, been trying to introduce a legislation to so that place can be used can be used by small vessels like what Pacific Marine or GPPC have. If they're allowed to go into that area, they can actually use their roll on, roll off, and I think it will tremendously bring down the cost of imported goods on Rhoda. Can you please look at your agreement for designation? It was signed back in 2006, I believe.
That is correct, Senator. The East Harbor has been designated to the municipality for recreational purposes. I have discussed this with our Director of Planning. If there is a way that we can amend the designation to include or to authorize the smaller vessels to enter in the event that there's inclement weather and they cannot make port from the West Harbor. And yes,
That's my problem because I think I mean, with all the sufferings on Rhoda and the high cost of goods, uh, I think we might have to balance recreational use only and allow small vessels to go in there. I mean, it's like we're only hurting ourselves. On Tinian, they have stevedoring contracts with CPA, yet they allow small vessels to go on the side or wherever that's safe and proper. And I don't see why not amend the designation there so that small vessels can actually just go in there easily, and it's going to go a long way in bringing in goods cheaply, and I think it might even result in more regular weekly or you know vessels just coming in every day through the East Harbor, and I hope you can look at that. I want to be meeting with DPO in the future because it's like it's there, and we're very worried about how we're gonna how the laws and all that. Let's change the law and allow vessels to come in there and save our people money, right?
And I totally agree with you as Senator. We can meet with the Rhoda delegation and the members of the Rhoda delegation, including the mayor of Rhoda, to amend the designation to include smaller vessels to be able to make port at the East Harbor in the event that they cannot make port at the West Harbor. So this way they would they have the the East Harbor to be bringing in commodities for our people.
Yeah, because I've heard of instances where vessels were even, even when there was rough water, they were told to get out and turn back, and that's really unbelievable that we would ask vessels to turn back. So I appreciate if you can uh, review this 2006 designation
Yes,
of
I
public
understand
lands.
that designation was designated to the former mayor of Rhoda. I believe it was Mayor Enos.
Um, Moving on just quickly on the transition report, there was a recommendation by the transition committee to repeal Public Law 20-52 to return the right-of-way responsibilities to DPL. I mean,
That is correct, Senator, and it is DPL's position to review and reenact Public Law 20-52 because after the enactment of that particular public law, it has dramatically decreased the revenues of DPL at the tune of about between $250,000 to $300,000 per annum. So far, DPL lost close to about $600,000 dollars as a result of that public law. I have discussed this with the acting secretary Yumo. In fact, this morning before I came out here, and he said that we would need to further discuss this.
but are they getting it at DPW? Is that what's happening, or is the government, the general fund, getting it, or are they not charging? Is that
So as far as I know, they have yet to promulgate the rules and regulations in order for them to carry out.
also they're not even charging?
Not, I mean, Senator, I'm not sure, but according to the acting secretary, they have yet to, what's this promulgate rules and regulations in order for them to execute the intended purposes of that particular legislation.
So the secretary agrees to repeal the law and give it to DPL?
He mentioned that we have to sit down and further discuss this. Yes, but then again, we would greatly appreciate, to have this public law be repealed and be given back to DPL. So
But does that mean also that the right-of-way manual would then fall under DPL, or will you be responsible for all the?
it will fall under DPW.
Oh, but if we repeal it, right, that all of those will fall under
Yes,
DPL.
correct, yes. And again, we can what's this help DPW with their survey and stuff like that. Once we have this revenue.
So speaking of surveyors, how many surveyors do you have?
So currently we only have 3, and we are in the process of having all these vacancies out for surveyors. We have yet to receive the.
How many are you trying to get, or how many?
At least 5, and we're just waiting for the announcement to be closed, receive the certification of eligibility, conduct the interviews, and we have our surveyors.
And speaking of, I mean, their personnel, one of the concerns that I see here is the backlogs that hold up processing of leases and permit renewals. Is that still ongoing, that concern?
So again, the senator, during my testimony, I have indicated that there's going to be improvements in the department, of one of which is the turnaround response to ESR applicants.
Oh. Okay. Thank you, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions from the other members, Ms. Santos, you're hereby excused for today.
Thank you,
And I
Chair,
appreciate you
thank
coming
you,
in and
members of
spending time
this,
with us.
Body. It's it's a very great interaction, and I greatly appreciate all of you.
Thank you. It is now 12:25 p.m. and I hereby call this meeting to recess until 2 p.m. this afternoon.